Hey, this is Christina Ng. I've tasted some of the best Asian foods while traveling around the world, from Thailand to Shanghai. But to me, nothing tastes better than good old home cooking. Come join me for the journey because this is where East meets kitchen. Today I'll be making one of my favorite appetizers of all time, scallion pancakes. The only difference is these are going to be extra crispy and extra flaky. They're so easy to make, I'm pretty sure you'll be making it at all of your parties. Okay, so today we're going to be making some really delicious Taiwanese scallion pancakes. Now, the difference between these scallion pancakes and I think others are that these are actually a lot more flaky, and actually you can, when you bite into it, you can taste each flake and each little crunch in between, and it makes for, I think, a really good scallion pancake. So, a little bit of prep work that we're going to do first is I'm going to reach back here. I've already washed these, so take about, and this is going to make about 3 scallion pancakes, so about a bunch of your scallions, okay? And just dice it until you just get the really small rounds. So, okay. Now if that's too much for you, because essentially I'm a pretty lazy cook, so I just take, you know, the kitchen shears that you guys have for chicken, or just some clean kitchen scissors, and you can just essentially, I mean, just take like 2 of them and just cut that in. And for me, it's a lot easier to do this, and you don't have to take out a board, you don't have to take out another knife, you can wash less things, right? And it goes a lot quicker, so. What I'm actually going to do with these scallions as well is I'm going to put a little bit of salt in them so that they can flavor the dough later on, and that can add some really good flavors and really bring out the good scallion flavor. I'm going to take this right off. Okay, and let me just go in. Just a pinch of salt is going to do. Put that around. Okay, put this back down. All right, now we're going to start on the actual pancake, the dough of the pancake. This is a super easy recipe. It's essentially going to be, I'm just going to finish this off, a pound of flour to a cup of water is going to be the basic things, okay? So I've kind of done out a little bit of the prep work, but I find that a pound of flour is going to be about 2.5 cups of flour. Put that in. So you're going to have that. I'm going to just do the kneading in this big bowl, because I hate messing up the countertops when I knead, because I'm kind of messy. So I'm actually just going to put that in. So a pound of flour. I have a teaspoon of salt right on the table, and also 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds. Sesame seeds are something that I do especially for this pancake because I love the crunch and the flavor that it adds to the pancakes. So essentially, when you guys are making this, anytime that you guys are cooking, it's good to, you know, put your own little touch into the recipes. You know, I try the recipes out the first time according to what the book says, and then by the second time I'm already, you know, adding my own touches to it. So you guys should try to do that too. So I'm just going to kind of make that little bit of a well in here. So flour, salt, a little bit of sesame seeds. I am going to, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of oil. What I like about that is it really richens up the dough a little bit and doesn't turn it, you know, too cakey, too doughy. So we're going to do that, and then right here I have a cup of water. So that's it. This is the world's simplest dough. So I'm just going to mix that around. And I mean, this really, it's weather dependent as well, so there's no exact recipe to this. If the dough does feel a little bit wet, you want to, you know, add a little bit more flour. It really doesn't matter. And then if the dough is a little too dry, then a little bit more water. Okay, so you kind of see that this is gonna kind of come together. We're gonna do a kneading motion. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but essentially what kneading is you're gonna kind of drag out the dough from the side and then push it back into the center. Drag it, and then rotate, drag it to the side, flip it back to the center, rotate, drag it to the back, flip it to the side, center. So you're essentially making a ball, but this process really mixes the, all of the wet ingredients and the dry ingredients together. You're, again, ripping from the side, pushing to the center, rotate, side, pushing to the center, rotate. And what you're going to end up getting is a ball of dough. Okay. So this can take a couple of minutes, but essentially you're going to get a good sized ball of dough like this, okay? And what you want to do is right now let it rest, because after you finish kneading dough, you really build up the gluten a lot, so it's going to make the dough tougher to work with. You want to let this rest for about, I would say, an hour or so, and then divide this up into 3 little balls, okay? That's actually what the recipe calls for. So I'm actually going to put this to the side. I have 2 already made. So essentially, that's what you end up with. You end up with about three balls of dough, okay? And like I said before, since I am such a lazy chef, I like to do all of my work on an actual pan so that you don't get it too messy. So I'm gonna actually put out 2 different pans here. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna wash my hands for a little bit. Dough all over my hands. All right, so now goes the flavor. I have about 3 tablespoons of olive oil right here in this bowl, and what I'm going to do is add about a teaspoon, of sesame oil. So I think by now you guys can basically find sesame oil in most of your supermarkets, but it is an oil that is very, very fragrant. You only need a little goes a long way. So essentially I have the oil here, and I'm just going to thin it out with a little bit of olive oil. I'm going to go back and grab a spoon here together. So to prevent the dough from sticking as I knead it out, I'm actually just going to put about, a good teaspoon of oil here, okay, and I'm just going to move it around the bottom of the pan, okay. I'm going to get my dough. I'm going to put this right on top. This is kind of like focaccia bread when you're making focaccia bread, but so it's the same process, and I'm going to put another teaspoon of oil right on top. Why am I doing this? So why am I kind of engulfing this in a little bit of oil is because I want that flaky consistency. Essentially what I'm doing, it's a little bit like the French puff pastry. With the puff pastry, it's a layer of dough, a layer of butter, and then a layer of dough, a layer of butter until you get it over and over again. Essentially that's what I'm doing with the dough, only this time I'm doing it with the oil. And you can see that with the oil, it's going to make the dough a lot easier to spread. I'm not even, I'm not using a roller or anything. I'm just using my hands, and I'm going to spread this out on this sheet pan here. I'd say it's about, maybe like an 8x14 type of sheet pan, so a medium-sized sheet pan. Okay. And really, essentially what I was doing before was I was doing, like a rotating motion to spread it out, but now I'm just using my fingers and just gently kind of patting this out, And if you have a hole somewhere in between, don't worry about it. Just, try to cover it. We're going to wrap it a little later, so it's really not going to matter, okay? So once you get it to this stage, this is what we're going to do. You're going to take about a handful of scallions. This is totally by preference. Like, I like a lot of scallions in my scallion pancakes. So I'm just going to sprinkle that over. Okay. So remember, we already have a little bit of salt from the scallions. We have the scallions themselves. We have a little bit of sesame oil. So this is a really nicely flavored pancake. All right. And so now we're going to be working on the texture. How do we get that flaky consistency? Check this out. All right. So once you have this little rectangular shape, I want you to essentially fold it. So that's one layer. And you're going to kind of roll it up. Fold it again. You're going to get your second layer until you get to the end. So you're going to have like a nice log and a couple of different layers. Okay. To help with the layers again, we're going to coil the dough. So, you know, hold it on one side, flip the dough, and if some of the scallions fall out, it's not a problem. Just stick it back in. It's not an exact science. So you have it coiled, right? Now you're gonna turn it into a like a circle shape. So it's gonna be coiled. It's gonna be looped. It's gonna have layers. And what we're actually gonna do from this point is we're going to use a rolling pin, flatten it out so that you're going to get all of those little layers within the pancake. All right. So at this stage, I usually just put it here, I let it hang out a little bit, and then this is when I would go on and make my second one. So let me just do that for you again. Take like, you know, like a Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon, and you can make a bunch of these. And I'll actually show you how to freeze them afterwards so that you can take them out anytime. So again, I'm doing that wrapping motion so that you're making layers upon layers with the oil in between so that when it cooks up, it's really going to get really flaky. So now that you have the log, we're going to do the coil. So coil. Reminds me a lot of, like, you know, when you go to the malls and then you see them make the pretzels and then everybody gets really hungry. It's kind of like that. All right, so after the coil, we're just gonna again coil it up, but then turn it into the shape of a circle. And again, this is useful right now because as soon as you flatten it, it's gonna be in the shape of a pancake. So let me go and wash my hands, and then we will continue on. Okay, so I'm just going to clear off some of my things right now. And this is when I yank out my rolling pin and then some wax paper. So this is how you store it essentially once you make it, and if you don't want to eat it right away, then you can, you know, save it for later on. I get a nice sheet of wax paper, probably like an 8x8 should be fine. 2 pieces actually, because you want to sandwich them in between each one. Okay. So I'm just going to show you guys one. Okay. So you're going to take one of these little scallion pancake things. Now it looks like a bun, but now it's going to be like a pancake soon. So put the other wax paper right on top, and you want to roll out from the center out always, okay? Because that's going to ensure that you have a nice even pancake. And I mean, you can even see it now in between all of the different layers, all of the different coils. Okay, and that's really going to hold in cooking as well. When you cook it, all of the little layers are going to hold on to itself, and it's really going to be a very flaky pancake. Okay. All right, so at this point, I mean, I would say it's probably, what, 7 inches in diameter, about. So at this point, what you can do, cook it up right away in a skillet pan. But what you can also do is, let me take you to my fridge. I have, like when I make scallion pancakes, I don't just make 1 or 2. I usually make, like 20 so that I don't have to make them for a really long time. But I have them in this stage, and then what I do is I stack it on top of each other, I stick it in a bag, and then I freeze it in the oven, in the refrigerator. So that when I need it and I want to eat it, then I can just take it out. All right. So when you do get to that stage, when you're going to about eat it, you want to turn your skillet and your stove onto about medium-high heat. Okay. And you want to pan fry it with a little bit of oil. If you're more healthy, I would say use a little bit of oil, but if you want that really flaky consistency, I would say a little bit more oil so that you can mimic that type of like a frying stage, and that's going to increase your flakiness in the scallion pancakes. All right, so I would say about 3 minutes on each side, and then afterwards I have one pre-prepared for you right here. I'm actually going to bring it out to the table and I will cut it for you and present it. Okay. What I find the easiest, again, you can take a knife if you want to, but I find it's really easy to just use a pizza cutter. So it's going to be really crunchy in between, and you're going to get a lot of the little layers too. Okay, and I mean, you can cut it like this, you can cut it straight, whatever way you want. So I'm just going to cut it into 8 different pieces. Okay, and then when you serve it, I can actually just put it on a plate. Get that. You're saying, all right, what else are we missing? I have a really amazing and good sauce for you guys. It's going to be a soy garlic sauce, and that's going to be coming right up. So hang tight. Okay, so this sauce is going to be superly easy, and I love it because it's a little bit tangy, it's a little bit sweet, it's a little bit spicy, it's a little bit savory, so it has everything into one, and best of all, it's not too heavy. So what I do for my scallion pancake sauce is you're going to take a little bit of dark soy sauce. So I'm going to do about, I'd say 2 teaspoons of dark soy. I usually don't measure this out, I just dump it on, so it's the joys of cooking over baking. And about equal parts of vinegar, okay? Or a little bit less, but 2 teaspoons, 2 teaspoons. And then here are my flavoring ingredients here. I have a pinch of chili powder, just a pinch because I don't like things too spicy, but this is gonna add a little bit of kick to it. I have about a teaspoon or half a teaspoon of sugar just to sweeten the vinegar up. A little bit of salt. I use the salt because the saltiness from the soy sauce is a little bit different than that of salt, so I add that. And then finally a little bit of garlic powder really makes the whole dish come together and becomes a really nice savory sauce. So essentially I'm just going to dump all of that in, okay, mix it around, and at this stage this is a really potent sauce, and I thin it out with just a little bit of water. I know a lot of people like to do it with like sesame oil or oil. I find that that makes the sauce way too heavy already. So a little bit of water, I've tried all the other ways, works really wonderfully. So just gonna stir the sauce together. It's a really light sauce, but it really coats the scallion pancakes well. All right, so now let's do the try. I'm just gonna take a piece right here. Put that in. That doesn't take a lot, so. It's really good because you can taste the different crunchy layers in the scallion pancakes for texture. And then the sauce really adds a nice touch to it because it's a little bit sweet, it's a little bit salty, but the tanginess I love. So I would say usually for the scallion pancakes, you can have it as an appetizer. You can even, I would say, like have it for lunch or whenever you're hungry and you don't want that big full meal. I really hope that you guys decide to try this recipe at home because it's so easy and it's so